life is a mess and you're totally stressed out, just call Trent. Just call Trent. When your wife is cold as ice and you need some advice, just call Trent. Just call Trent. He'll shoot it straight and he won't say no. He'll just give you that advice and say, well, there you go.
Oh, hello and welcome to another episode of There You Go with Trent Mabry. I, of course, am your host, Trent Mabry. Today, my guest is Todd Glass. How are you, Todd?
I'm doing good. We were talking a little bit before we started. I said some nice things about you. So, I don't want people to think I just get right into the business,
No, you did say some nice things. I appreciate it. And it means a lot. I appreciate it. Thanks for doing this.
You're welcome. Whenever anybody asks me to do, like now with social media, it's so much easier. If someone asks you to do a podcast, I always like, go take a look at them, And
Yeah.
and it's always nice when they're funny. I was like, you're like, oh, this guy's fucking funny. And now once you see somebody and they're, because then you're scrolling TikTok and then I'll see you and I'll be like, oh, okay, now you feel like, you stop and take a look at it. But anyway, there you go.
Yeah, you never want to agree to do a podcast and then you watch a guy's videos and he's the worst. And you go, oh no, I got to spend an hour talking to this guy.
Sometimes their comedy doesn't like show up. They cannot be maybe fun. I don't care if someone's not funny. I just care. Mostly me, it's like social things. Like, like I go to watch and I don't even want to use which one would bother me, but like, I'd be like, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean I don't think he should be able to do it. It just means like, I don't want to hang out with it,
Right. Yeah, exactly. You were on the road for a little bit. Where were you?
I went to, I don't usually do like tour. I'll do like one city, maybe I'll connect a second city, then I come back to LA. But this was like a little tour. I had like, I went to Philadelphia and then we did 6 shows there. And then I went to this place in New Hope. It's called John and Peter's. And it's crazy. It's so much fun. It only holds like 60 people.
Mm-hmm.
So we did like 2 shows on Monday, and it's just this iconic music place in New Hope, and the crowds are like so into it. And then I went to Pittsburgh and did a few 6 shows there, and I have a little band with me sometimes. And
I was gonna ask if you brought you brought the band.
Yeah, I brought the same one every single venue, so it was a lot of fun to have the same 3 guys. Like, we got tighter and tighter. It was tons of fun.
That's great. Now you started out in Philadelphia, right?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. After Philadelphia, you moved to LA. You didn't do any time in New York.
I know you would think that I would, but I knew somebody, the owner of the first club that I started at, he had moved to LA. I still own the club in Philly. So, I mean, I'm guessing that's why it was, because that's a good question. Even me years later, I'm like, and I loved Philadelphia, and I had so many friends, and I was going to miss them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think having someone on the other side and I guess I always wanted to live in California. My mom did, probably rubbed off on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went straight to LA.
Okay, that's yeah. How far into comedy were you when you made the move?
So I started in 81 in high school, and then so maybe 7 years in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's about where I am.
Yeah, and a lot of comedians that I'd work with would say, yeah, it's time, you got to move to LA. In hindsight, that's a good thing, because I don't ever say that to people unless I think, if you're working with someone and you think they're really funny, really funny, you're like, dude, you gotta get to LA, you gotta go to New York, or at least if they're in a little market, go to Chicago, go to Atlanta, wherever there's not LA or New York, but there's still a fucking scene going on. But I just went right to LA. And you've been doing it 8 years, you said?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
and are you loving it?
Oh, it's great. It's the best.
It's great.
Yeah, like I feel like just like within the past 3 or 4 years, I've really started to feel like I found like how I want to do comedy,
Right.
But
well, it's funny you say that, because which it's a good thing, but I felt like in 94 is when I started to, it sounds so cliche, but I hate that I have to preface that every time. Well, or maybe it gives it more legitimacy. You go, I know I'm about to stumble in something that you've heard a million times, but there's truth to it. So don't just let it go in one ear and out the other. That's what I mean when I say. And I found myself, like in 94, like, oh, I think this. But then years later, I thought I did even more. And I asked my friend Gary Goldman, I go, Gary, when am I going to stop looking at my old stand-up and being embarrassed by it, even if it's nothing that I think other people would notice? My voice, how I'm talking, why am I putting on affectations, talk like you talk, little things like that. I go, when am I going to stop being embarrassed in my old work? And he gave me a great answer. He goes, hopefully never. And I'm
Right.
like, you don't want to be like, oh, my best work was 5 years ago. So you do forever continue to evolve, but it just gets less embarrassing.
Exactly. Yeah. Now my favorite comic is Norm MacDonald. You knew Norm, and I don't know if anybody really knew him well, but you were friends with him.
I knew Norm pretty well, and Norm was Norm. Like Norm, once somebody dies, you don't want to then totally, be afraid to say what drove you crazy about Norm was that he would just disappear sometimes. And that's why when he was hiding it, it made it easier for him than maybe me, because everyone knows people know who, no, they don't do this. This is weird. If you had a friend that didn't call you back for a week, there'd be friends you would literally pick up the phone and try to find out if he's okay.
Right.
With Norm, that didn't happen. But I mean, he was just, he was here. We showed great affection for each other, and I didn't hide it. I don't have to go, oh, why didn't I tell him? I would always tell him, and I'd say, that's what, because even before he had cancer, he was still, like I said, but we'd hang around the fire pit, and, and it was always fun. I always tried to really choose who I would invite over if Norm was coming over, you know? And I always picked a good group. It was always really fun. I mean, he was fucking Norm. He was great,
Yeah, the best.
Now he's dead. Fucking hell, dirt. There's so many clips of him talking about death. Have you noticed that?
It's crazy. Yeah. Everybody's dead, it seems like.
You know what? I heard if something's true, I want to know it. But when I heard a comedian go, comedians used to live to be, 98, 100. What's going on? I think it's just that, look, even back, there were comedians that died. We just know the ones that live to be. So I think there's no plague out on comedians. If anything, it's amazing that some of them live as long as they do, not Norm, because he wasn't, but with what their health situation is, or what, or what but comedians still are going to live a long time.
Right. I also feel like,
I hope.
Yeah, me too. I also feel like back like in the old days, people just looked old all the time. Now,
as you get older, you want to know for real, wait a second, is it that I'm that age now? And we I do look that old, but through some research and honest asking my nephew, I go, Tyler, when you see pictures, he goes, no. When I see pictures of you, a lot of them, because fashion has come around, I could picture me being with your friends. He goes, when I look at pictures of, he goes, might be a lot that they're black and white when I go to my parents and they're his grandparents. And then I think people just like getting old. People would mow the lawn with like a suit on, and, and they did. They look. So it's not just that I'm there. We don't, go look at a picture of like people like that take care of themselves as they get older now, actors especially at 56. Go look at actors now, 56. Tom Cruise, I can never think of anybody. Parks and Rec, what's his name?
Oh, Rob Lowe,
John Stamos. If you choose to take care of yourself and then go back and look at people when they were 56, back from the 50s or 60s, it's like, oh my God, what the fuck?
Yeah, they're all just smoking constantly.
Yeah.
And the tanning booth all the time.
And they're talking about, like, oh, this is it for me. And then you go, how old were they there? They're like, singing about, Frank Sinatra was singing, I know I'm almost whatever. I don't know what I'm saying. I could just stop talking.
Well, like Red Fox used to fake a heart attack all the time. I thought he was in his 80s on Sanford and Son. Then he lived another 20 years after that. And then he died. Right. He had a heart attack while he was recording a show. Did you know Fox. That? Yeah.
He had a heart attack while he was doing a show?
Well, he was filming and he had another sitcom and he was on the set and people thought he was doing the bit where he was faking the heart attack and he actually had a heart attack and died.
Oh, wow. That's funny and sad.
Yeah.
That's funny and sad.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this. I'll explain to the people listening, if this is the first time listening, this is an advice podcast. If you need advice, you can email me at advicefromtrent@gmail.com. That's advicefromtrent@gmail.com. So I'm going to read an email. I'm going to pull it up on my iPhone 7 Plus.
You got to get the iPhone 7 Plus.
Trying to get the sponsorship deal.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought he either has it, because when somebody has it, you don't want me going, I just got it. That thing sucks. Meanwhile, you're trying to get them as a sponsor, and you're like,
so far it hasn't worked out yet, but we're still trying.
We just got to say it more, because if you have lower, you might have less listenership than other people, but if you say it 100 times every show, eventually they're going to just reach out of, they have to.
Exactly. They feel obligated.
The iPhone 7 Plus, it's the real deal. It's a great phone. And, if you go get it, you're going to go, all right, I'm going to go get it. Then people aren't going to get it and go, oh, it's not as good as they said. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's great. Sure, they've made 5 new phones after this one, but I still love the iPhone 7 Plus.
That's the one.
Yeah, exactly. All right. The subject is rank road trip. Dear Trent, never listened to the podcast, but I'm desperate and saw online that you give advice. I don't know why they needed to include that. I'm currently on a road trip with my friend who shall remain nameless. I love the guy. We've been friends for years, but he can be a bit sensitive. We're about 3 days into our 10-day trip, and he's really starting to smell. I've tried making subtle hints, like saying, do you smell that? Or somebody must have hit a skunk, but he never catches on. I don't know if I can handle 7 more days of this. Do you have any advice on how to tell my friend he stinks? Thanks, signed B.O. in Boise.
Wow. Well, first of all, they're saying he's sensitive, so it's going to be hard to tell him.
Yeah.
Man, it's hard. First of all, I think most people are sensitive when it comes to their smell.
Sure.
Even if they do smell, even if it's telling them. I try not to get my own way. Like, I want to know if my breath is like damp or smells.
Mm-hmm.
When someone tells me, it always bums me out. But I'm like, no. I want you to. So sensitive. Well, how about this for a start? Don't do it around anybody else.
Right. Yeah. Definitely has to be in private. Just the two.
Hey, this is awkward. This, if somebody heard me say this, then it's not going to work. But sometimes you could say, like, believe me, I know I didn't want to tell you because someone told me once that I had bad table manners, or pick something that somebody told you for real, or make it up even, and just go, someone told me I had bad breath, and I'll be honest, so I didn't want to like offend you or anything, but and when no one else is around, and
right.
I thought, I just wanted to, right? That's a good starting point, right?
That's a good starting point. Now, have you ever had this, like, you've been on the road, you've been riding cars with guys before. Has that ever happened where somebody's kind of smelly?
It did happen, maybe twice, over all the years. And, one person was, the way they should have been. I was a little nervous. They're like, oh, no, thank you for letting me know. I was like, the other person was, I never dealt with it. But for the second person wasn't as bad, the situation. One was like thick BO. It was dense, I've smelled people with BO, just never anybody on the show.
Right.
That I can remember. But of course, where I had to maybe, it was pretty dense. And but the other one was, if I remember correctly, it was patchouli oil.
Oh.
And they played in the band. Now I know there's
Yeah.
people out there going, "Oh, I love patchouli oil." That's not the point. The point is you're around other people. It's a pungent, it's a very distinct smell. So maybe you want to vanilla it down a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I agree. The patchouli, it gets me. I don't get affected by like, I mean, like heavy cologne and stuff, but the patchouli is very bad. It's
It's a little, it could give you a headache, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, it's because I used to have a joke in my act, not to dip into my act, but it was patchouli smells like if somebody said, "You're not gonna believe this, but I grind up my own incense and I make deodorant out of it." I go, no, I believe you. It smells like that. I believe. No.
Right. There's a guy in the subway. You know how they have like the hallway, the walkway, and this guy sets up a booth, a little table, and he sells incense. And I don't know how it's possible. It makes the subway smell worse.
Maybe because it's like so many smells going that, and it's like, yeah, it's not fresh, you know. It makes the incense. Incense. You know, incense. I not that I want to go off on incense, but
no, please go.
I like the smell of burning wood, but most incense have a smell it just lingers as maybe a bad cologne, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think women's bad perfume is a lot better than men's bad cologne, because if you do smell, well, first of all, most fragrance are going to be, you know, it's not going to be men or women soon, which is a fine idea. You just, whatever you want to smell, you smell like. But with traditionally the way it's been, women's, it can be sweet. It's usually sweet, and they walk by, oh, I might not want to smell that for an hour, but it smelled nice, you know, even if it's too sweet. But with the smells of men, it's just fucking, just, what the fuck? Like, it's not smell good. That smells like just, and it's in my nasal cavity now, and just,
yeah, it is. It is weird. Like when you're in like middle school, you think you need to wear cologne, when really you just need deodorant. But they market the cologne. They market it where you need this stuff to attract the whatever you're into, the ladies or the guys. But really, never.
Good for you, by the way, for changing that, because same thing I do in my act. And you know, after a while, I used to say to people, when you don't update the way you deliver things, and you know, people want to get hysterical about it and maybe go, "Oh, I can't say my girlfriend, even if I have." Oh, I just fucking relax. Of course you can, but there's a lot of things. If you're not angry, you'll go, "Oh yeah, I'm open that up to you know, to be more." It doesn't have to be, you know, because otherwise, when you don't, it just looks like I said. You don't wait till your hair's a mullet to get a haircut. So if someone goes, "Oh, this," so if a joke is even getting close, and then if you don't, you end up like what's on Family Feud, you know, where he won't stop asking, "Is there a lady in your life?" And finally, a guy goes, "No, but there's a guy." It's like, yeah, eventually that's going to happen, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, but smells, yeah, it's hard. Oh shit! You asked me a question about the cologne. No, I got it.
Well, I was saying like when you're young, you think you need cologne.
Oh right.
But really, you just need deodorant, and then you learn that.
Well,
yeah.
And I learned. I used to do. It was called gray flannel, and I don't know why I didn't want to buy deodorant. I was embarrassed. Maybe I was embarrassed to shave. I was embarrassed at puberty. Maybe, you know, in hindsight. So I would never admit anything, and I used to just. My dad had gray flannel, and I would just get it and like, oh, that'll make it smell better. Then it smelled like BO that had gray flannel.
Yeah, just masking.
Just masking.
Yeah, so I do think it's a good idea to take him in private. Say, hey, listen, you know, some people have said to me sometimes, but I'm so non-confrontational. Here's what I would try to do. I would try to get COVID.
just to not have to deal with it.
Yeah.
I'll just get COVID. I'll be fine. And hopefully I have the type that my smell never comes back.
Right.
That's
Yeah, exactly.
Holy, I'm so lucky. I bet I would eat less if I didn't have smell. I mean, I want smell because I get it. You don't miss it till you have it. But, you know, be nice. When I have a cold, I can not eat as much.
Yeah. Now, did you ever get COVID?
Yes.
You did? Oh, yeah. Oh, you.
I did. I
Yeah.
did. You know, it's funny. I was triple vaxxed.
Mm-hmm.
I was triple vaxxed and I got it. And I mean, in LA this time of year, your nose can be a little stuffed up, you know, but it had been for like 6 months. So but other than that, nothing, no signs. And it was virtually, not virtually, it didn't, even though I got it and I was like, fuck, I know triple vax people can get it. But I was lucky that it wasn't, I wasn't in pain and nothing, it was just nothing.
Yeah, that's good. I don't think I've had it. I haven't felt sick. But I feel like now I just feel like a loser because everyone I know has had it. I feel left out.
It went from, being, and by the way, this was a thought I had before I had it. Speaking of the band, there was someone in the band and they had it. And I thought, great, there's my safest guy. So then I found out one other person was triple vaxxed and had it like a month and a half before. So I'm like, I went from being scared of people that had it to be scared of people that didn't have it, Yeah. I want the whole band triple vaxxed and have had COVID.
Right.
None of this just triple vax. That doesn't mean shit. I need them to have the COVID also.
Yeah, you gotta be safe.
Yeah, you can't be stupid.
No, but I do think the best option is to go in private, talk to him.
Definitely talk to him in private. And you know what? I'm already fantasizing. It's not like for this guy, I want to guess that he'll take it negatively, but it's like a smoke alarm. You don't want a fire. It's just in the event of one, you want to be safe. So in the event, this guy that's asking for advice has him be, as long as you're nice, like we don't know you, we don't know how you're going to ask, but hypothetically, in my scenario, you sit down, no one's around. I don't know. Maybe you've been making sarcastic jokes for the last year. We don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
That throws things off rail. But if you've never said anything yet to the person that wrote the letter, and then he does get defensive, you just got to lay low. You just got to go ahead. Just because, like I said, I'd want to know. And if there is something, remember when you're telling him that you had someone tell you that, your breath smells this, or then you can relate that way. But otherwise, just maybe that's, if he gets too defensive, that might just be a sign for a friendship you don't really need anyway. Because if you think about it, like your friends should want to know that they smell.
Exactly.
And if they don't, then it sounds weird to go, oh, you're going to not be a friend with someone just because they don't want to know they smell? No, exactly. Because no matter how interesting somebody is, no matter how loving they are, and no matter how great they are, it's like if somebody put dog shit under my nose and told me great life advice. I'm like, the dog shit under my nose is making it hard, even though you're saying great things.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so if they don't want to do that, here's what I would suggest. If they don't want to actually confront them face to face, I would suggest maybe they're on a road trip. Maybe they could just put this podcast on.
You know what? That is, sometimes on my podcast, I've done the same thing. I went, well, maybe just send them here and give them the mile marker on it, and then just because we're saying this in a pretty loving, caring way.
Right.
So if the person is listening right now, hello, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, welcome.
Whatever your name is. And, you could write Trent a letter too and tell him your side of this. Maybe the other guy, maybe he's already been mean about it. We don't know the real story.
Exactly. And then I'd have another episode.
We can get a two-parter out of this.
Yeah, I'll have to have you back.
I like giving advice. I like to really think it through, though. When somebody, through an email or something, I do. I like to go, okay, imagine this is real and they're doing it. Mm-hmm. That's how I can tell if my advice I give is shitty. I'll say, well, tell your cousin this at Thanksgiving, or say this to your brother. And I go, Todd, picture you're at Thanksgiving and it's one of your brothers and you're doing that. And I go, oh, it's shitty advice. It sounded like good advice, but not if I had to do it to one of my brothers that I was disagreeing with. So
Yeah. Have you ever like been talking to somebody? What's like the worst advice you've ever been given?
I'm only laughing because I've like me and this other comedian have this running joke from years ago. Like when I was 20, this comedian goes, "Get a suit." It's like, even then we knew, and I was like 20, and he was only like maybe 45 or something, like not old, and we're like, get fucked. We would all. That's all we ever said was get a suit. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the shitty advice. Those type. That's why when I give advice for comedy, especially, I like, like some people go, oh, maybe your comedy isn't that good if it's offending people or hurting people's feelings. That's not true either, because you just don't want to offend the wrong people.
Right.
Hopefully you're in 30 years from now, you go back and look at your comedy and go, okay, it's okay to offend people. You just don't want to be embarrassed of who you were offending. You know what I mean? Like civil rights, you want to be offending the people, hopefully, that that were on the, the people that, but anyway, hold on. You asked me a simple question and I gave you a long fucking stupid answer.
No, you answered it. It was the
worst advice.
Yeah.
Worst advice. Yeah. That wear a suit, get a suit. All right. Please. Thank you. I heard one this comedian goes, don't write your jokes down on the paper. And I wouldn't even like write them down and lift up the piece of paper. I wouldn't be like, okay. I would write it down put it on the stool, big black Sharpie. Don't write it down. It makes it look like it never happened. I was like, all right, listen, you and the suit guy can take on. Best advice I ever got was from a comedian hanging out with me after the show. I could have got insulted. And he goes, in hindsight, it was probably hard for him to say. He goes, I was funny off stage. And I knew that he thought I was funny off stage. And I really liked that. It meant a lot to me because he was funny. And he goes, why don't you take some of this that you do here and bring it? You're funny on stage. Don't get me wrong. He goes, bring it up to the stage. And I took that to heart. I knew that he was right. And I knew that he was probably brave to say it. He could have put it off. It's a hard thing to tell someone. Because if you're telling someone that isn't emotionally crippled or stupid, you're saying what you're doing up there is not as funny as who you are.
Right.
So I was like, that was good advice that I'm glad that I got.
Yeah. And then you took that to the stage and you were wearing a suit at the time.
I did. I took both of their advices, even the bad advice. I wanted to be nice to that guy. Hey, I got the suit. Have you noticed how much better I'm doing? Meanwhile, that's not the reason.
Yeah, that's good. Get a suit is very funny.
Get a suit. How about you? Did you ever get any still?
Trying to think. I feel like I just ignore like bad advice, so I never remember.
From comedians, like were you thinking from comedians, like?
Yeah.
When you asked me, because that's what I was thinking in my head, not from family or just from other comedians,
I always feel like it's not advice, but when you're at like a holiday family get together, your uncle will say some dumb thing and then go, "Oh, why don't you can use that in the act."
Yeah, you know what I started doing when people did that, but like 20 years later? Oh, how?
Yeah, that's yeah.
You could be like, I know you give me that. You could be like, you're funny, making funny. Well, what makes you think I have trouble coming up with the topics? What makes you think I just need someone to make that funny? Once in a blue moon, you do get something where you'll be like, oh, actually, that would be funny to do comedy on. But the longer you do comedy, the more dated the idea for the jokes are from your family, because they're still in the 80s where it's like a very simple conclusion. Did you ever notice, not at its best, did you ever notice can be brilliant, but in the 80s, my brother's always got advice like that. He's like, hey, I'm like, that could have been funny 40 years ago, but it's too simple. It's the average person will get to the punchline before I do. And in good comedy, the audience shouldn't get to the punchline before you do.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
what my friend told me years ago. He goes, on stage, if the crowd gets to it before you do, now a comedian might be able to, but the audience shouldn't.
Mhm.
Maybe comedian either. I don't. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, well, that's the best advice I ever got was don't listen to anybody else's advice.
It's probably true. You know, you can pick and choose.
Right. Yeah, definitely picking. Yeah.
Pick and choose, but overwhelmingly, you know, that's why like running your jokes even by your friend. My friend said, you know what? He goes, and it was an honest answer. He goes, you'll do it, you'll make it funny. I don't fucking know. I don't want to stop it. And I'm like, that was honest with him because like he goes, I don't know. I don't want to. No, that's not funny, you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
And he's dead now. The comedian that said that is dead, and I'm glad. He got hit by a truck and had a dragged out, horrible death. And I went to the hospital every day and I said, hey, what about that fucking advice with the thing you said?
And what he said?
Oh, he just choked. And it's funny when someone asks you a question, this is something you know never happened. Right. You have to just add libel. Oh, he choked to death and I pulled the plug. And, and it's all good now, though.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I would say I think we gave him 3 good options.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Can I tell you, I want to know how it goes. So can this guy, if he hears this, write you back and then you forward it to me? Like, I will think about this, not every day. It might be a week I don't think about it. And then I'll be like, oh, I wonder if that advice worked. So could you let us know?
Yeah, please reply to, let us know how it goes and let us know which one you chose. You can either take him in private, talk to him, treat him very nice. You can get COVID or you can play them this podcast.
I forgot that getting COVID was one of the options. Just go to a lot of bands you like. Don't get COVID haphazardly.
Yeah, make it worth it.
Haven't seen a lot of new bands because you're like, I don't want to push it. Just start going and see bands. You'll get COVID. You'll lose your smell. Boom. Now, if I was going to dip into my act, and Trent, I think you would say you would understand why in this specific situation.
All right.
Oh, but you could say, hey, what do you think 50 Tic Tacs would taste like? You know, I'm dipping into the act. Or you could go, hey, I got a question for you, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic. Is your ass backed up? No. I heard it's a thing. My doctor told me it's like a technical thing. There's a blockage, and it could make it smell like there's sewage or shit coming out of your mouth. If that happened to you, anyway, that's dipping into the act. So what are you going to do, you know? Is it sad that I dipped into my act, Trent?
No, I don't think so.
Please, can we edit this in?
I wish I had an act to dip in too.
You have please stop it already. You're a funny man.
Oh, I was just fishing for the compliment, really.
I know. Well, you deserve it. I was laughing. I was like, oh, this guy's funny.
Well, thanks.
You find new funny people. You know why you have to make new funny friends? That's why, because a lot of your friends you had, they're like, oh, I can't do anything. I have a kid. So you got to go out. And not only because it's inspiring, because you can know what you're talking about. When people go, comedy's not what it used to be. You can know that that's not true, but you got to go out and see comedy a lot. Otherwise, you turn into one of those fucks. He goes, comedy will never be. Yeah, I bet if you went out 5-6 weeks a night and really checked out what was going on, you wouldn't say that. But mainly, which is past tense, because you need new people to hang out with. You got to meet new friends. If you're in New York, the odds are if I reach out to you, you're going to, oh, yeah, you'll stay out. You'll have a good time.
Yeah.
So, guys like Rory Scovel, I don't need that shit anymore. Oh, my wife, my baby, my kid. I want to fucking hang out, you know?
Yeah, he's old news, Rory.
He's old news. Rory Scovel is dead, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody listening to this podcast, he got hit by a truck and he's dead. Everybody's dead but me.
He choked. Todd had to pull the plug.
He choked. Yeah, that was the guy.
He gave you that awful advice. Well, thanks so much for doing this, Todd. Is there anything You want to plug?
You know what? 10-year-old Tom just got picked up for a second season on HBO Max. So
Oh yeah, that's great. You have a voice on there.
I do the principal. So that's really it. But yeah, it was nice talking to you. And then if I'm in New York or something, we'll hang out. We'll go hang out at a club or something.
I love that. Thanks so much.
Cool. And I meant, by the way, comedy club. I didn't want you to think, there's a disco I want to take you to with some friends that live there. My friend Jennifer owns it. So it's a great club. We'll wait in line. We'll get ahead of it. We'll dress up. We'll go out like people used to.
We'll buy a suit.
Anyway, yeah, we'll wear a nice suit.
Yeah.
Bump into that comedian. But yeah, nice talking to you, and we'll hang soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Hey baby, I hear the blues are calling. Tossed salads and scrambled eggs. Mercy. And maybe I seem a bit confused. Yeah, maybe. But I got you pegged. But I don't know what to do with those tossed salads and scrambled eggs. They're calling again. Scrambled eggs all over my face. What is a boy to do? Mabry has left the building.